Hello physical science student, if you watch this first video already, you would know the functioning or why do we use simple machine for general purposes. So that talks about all the different types of simple machine. This video will help you to do example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so with that, let's look at it. Which pulley would have the greatest mechanical advantage? Now, which one would you have to move the most distant, but in return you use the least amount of force? So for pulley, once again, it's the number of rope attached to the object. Okay, so look at how many rope is attached to the object. And the one that has the most rope attached to the object would have the greatest mechanical advantage because you would have to move it that many times more distant, but in return you use that many times less force. So if you have, say, for example, 6 rope attached to an object using a pulley system, it will be 6 times lighter or easier to move. But in return, you have to move it 6 meters for the object to go up 1 meter. Now here we have different type of lever. Here my input arm is this distance compared to my output arm. So usually the greater your input arm compared to your output arm, the more mechanical advantage you would have. Okay, so this is the input, this is the output, and you can see that the input is slightly longer than the output. So this should be easier for you to push down. Here we see we have this input right here, which is a decent, good amount of distance, and you have the output is just that distance. So once again, compare the input to the output, and you know the advantage you would have. The greater the input arm is compared to the output, the greater the advantage. Okay. Here my input is only this distance, but my output is longer. So which one of these would have the greatest mechanical advantage and why? Okay. Also practice explaining why. So here I'm going to move this big wheel, pretend I'm an older lady who's trying to lift up some water that weighs like, 100 Newton or 50 Newton, pretty heavy. I can't bend over on the well and try to pull it up because it'll be very hard, right? And by hard we mean it takes a lot of force. So we use a wheel and axle system to help people lift up heavier objects. Okay, but once again, in return of moving a much bigger distance, I will get a smaller distance coming up. So it takes more time, but it will be less force required. So this could be 100 Newton, but I might only have to move 10 Newton over here. So remember, a Newton is about a weight of an apple, a little bit more than that. Now, taking a piece of wood and trying to split it open with my bare hand would not be possible unless I'm Captain America, right? The reason is the bond in between the wood fiber, the lignin, is very, very strong, right? That's why we use wood to build things like desks, chairs, and houses in the old day. But by using a simple machine, we can split it open with less effort. Okay, how does a wedge work? Okay, so once again, if you think about it, you have to move all this distance down in return for the wood to move over by that much. So by putting a force down and you're moving at a very great distance, say 10 centimeter, right? You would only split the wood maybe 2 centimeter. So why is it less effort? So remember the idea that nothing is free in energy. You exchange bigger distance for less effort with all simple machine. Here I have 2 screws. This one, pretend if I go from the bottom up to the top, it'll be 20 centimeter. This one, if I go from the bottom to the top, it would be 40 centimeter because the pitch or the angle is much lower. Think of it like a ramp that's very, very low. It's much easier to go up when it's a lower angle of incline. But in return, the ramp has to be much longer, right? Just for you to get the same amount of height. So which screw will be easier to screw? Why? Okay, remember, you exchange greater distance for less effort or easiness. Basically, I just explained how an inclined plane works. So here we have 3. Take a look at it and think about why is this one the easiest and why is this one the hardest. Okay. So here we have a combination of 2 simple machines that we use all the time. A screw and a screwdriver, which has a bigger rounded handle for a little bit of an axle that's smaller. So whenever I rotate this 10 centimeter, this might only move 1. Okay. And whenever I screw down on a screw, whenever I twist my screwdriver 1 centimeter, this thing might only go in about 1/10 of a centimeter. So I'm exchanging like, 100 centimeter of motion for this to go in 1 or 2 centimeter. But I'm using 2 simple machine, and I'm moving it like 100 times in terms of twisting it or turning it in exchange for it to go in 1 centimeter or 2 centimeter. Okay, so think about that.